So X-Plane 12 has gone into early beta testing. This is available to the masses. You can go on their website, you can buy it for $60, and you're sat there trying to work out whether you should part with your hard-earned cash and you should buy it. Now, before we get into the detail of this video, I want to be really clear. This is an early beta release of X-Plane 12. It's not the finished product by any means, shape or form. The entire point of beta testing is to iron out bugs. However, it's reasonable to assume that a pretty substantial amount of this simulator has finished its development. So historically, X-Plane has been considered the more realistic of the flight simulators, particularly when compared to the various options that Microsoft have released over the years. It's fair to say that when X-Plane was compared to FSX or Flight Simulator X, it was the superior product in terms of flight dynamics, where FSX could feel a bit on rails. X-Plane felt far more fluid in its flight model, and it was certainly the better choice for real-world pilots. And X-Plane 12 certainly includes some really significant overhauls to its various systems. However, it doesn't list the flight model on the marketing on their website as being particularly one of the things that's received a major overhaul. So I'm going to read this directly from their website. So improvements include a photometric HDR lighting engine, 4D weather engine, 7 new aircraft, volumetric 3D clouds, seasonal weather, special visual effects, and new 3D forests, water and vegetation. So no mention at all of flight models there. It seems strange that the key differentiator of their series of flight simulators is not mentioned there. Now, this isn't to say that there aren't improvements to the flight model. I'm sure that there are, but it's not the immediate focus of their advertising. It feels like what they're trying to do is address graphical improvements that we've seen in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now, I've flown the demo of X-Plane 12 a reasonable amount. The flight model felt okay. As you all know, my penchant for flying in VR is pretty strong, so I immediately jumped into VR, and my immediate first impression of the graphics of the simulator were that they're pretty poor, and I've been spoiled with Microsoft Flight Simulator for the last couple of years. So it's not just that the graphics were poor. I believe the performance was relatively poor. I had to crank the settings down a reasonable amount. I saw quite a significant amount of stuttering in the sim. I saw quite a lot of, as I moved my head side to side, quite a lot of black bars at the side. And this is with a 3090 Ti and a 5800X 3D. No slouch of a system whatsoever. And, you know, it's the performance feeling poor and the actual visual fidelity not looking great as well. So I flew traffic patterns in the Cessna 172. I did that a number of times, and I jumped into Microsoft Flight Simulator. I grabbed the G1000 variant of the Cessna 172. That's the version that's got the updated prop physics in Microsoft Flight Simulator and the computational fluid dynamics. Couldn't really feel much of a difference, and maybe it's familiarity with the sim, but I preferred Microsoft Flight Simulator. Now, I am going to caveat that again with that might be familiarity with the sim, and, you know, I've flown a few traffic patterns, But given just the rate of development that we see going on in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and this game as a service model that they've been running now for a couple of years, it feels like the gap between the flight model between Microsoft Flight Simulator and X-Plane is substantially smaller than it was back in the FSX days, potentially on parity. And if it's not, an awful lot of development ongoing that's likely to bring it to parity, and that gap doesn't seem insurmountable. But in terms of graphics, world building, AI, machine learning driven world building with the powerhouse development studio of Asobo and the, one of the biggest software companies, Microsoft, behind Microsoft Flight Simulator, that the flight model gap doesn't seem insurmountable for Microsoft Flight Simulator, but that jump to that graphics fidelity and that AI-driven world building seems like a very tall mountain for a relatively small development team working on X-Plane. And finally, for me, flying in VR is as much about escapism, having great adventures and going on cool trips, as it is the realism of the flying sim. So if you're a casual simmer, you're looking for some entertainment and some fun, you want a bit of an adventure, quite difficult to be able to recommend X-Plane. And we've got Sim Update 10 coming for Microsoft Flight Simulator. That's bringing us NVIDIA's DLSS, AMD's FSX sharpening. We've got a major release with helicopters coming in November with a bunch of associated physics updates supporting that as well. That's for the 40th anniversary edition. Now, as I said right at the beginning of this video, it's very, very early days for X-Plane 12, and this video is entitled Should You Buy X-Plane 12? Now, I'm not discounting X-Plane 12. Competition is good for us as consumers. Them releasing a brilliant product is going to make the Microsoft Flight Simulator development team even sharper and on their game. It's going to drive prices down. You can pick up both of these sims for the same amount of money. But to answer directly the question that I posed in the video, no, I don't think you should be buying X-Plane 12 now. If you've got Microsoft Flight Simulator, the things that X-Plane 12 does well aren't substantially better enough, I think, to warrant you outlying $60 and then building all of your third-party add-ons around it, and it falls substantially short in some other significant areas that I've outlined. So my recommendation is to save your cash, keep a watching eye on X-Plane 12 as it moves its way through beta, as they stamp out the bugs, as they resolve these graphical oddities that you seem to be getting in VR with the clouds, etc. Definitely keep one eye on it. It's worth keeping a lookout. But if you've got Microsoft Flight Simulator, you've already got a fabulous simulator. Save yourself the $60. Go and get yourself the Kodiak 100 or the Cessna 310 or the Cessna 414 or whatever aircraft tickles your fancy, and go and have a jolly good time in it. And if you're a brand new flight simmer, there are more people flying Microsoft Flight Simulator each month than there has ever been in any sim in all of history. It has a truly colossal community that sits around it. Leverage that community. Getting into flight simming is not a simple, easy thing to do. These are complicated bits of software. The aircraft are complex to learn and the software is complicated to learn. Leverage that great community. Use that to your advantage to make your transition into flight simming a little bit easier. But all of us should keep a watching eye on X-Plane, and let's watch Austin work his magic. It feels to me like this release feels a little rushed, came a little out of the blue. There didn't seem to be, as someone who spends an awful lot of their time reading about flight simming, watching videos on flight simming, it sort of caught me a bit by surprise. Now, I know that this is going to be a divisive video. I know that there are going to be some X-Plane evangelists that are going to strongly disagree with what I'm saying. I know that there are some Microsoft Flight Simulator evangelists that are going to agree with what I'm saying. So I do invite you to leave your thoughts down in the comments below. We're all part of the flight sim community. We all have a passion for aviation. Let's respect each other's points of view. Let's keep it polite. Let's keep the conversation reasonable. By all means, have a debate, but let's keep it characteristically Britishly polite. That would be my ask. As always, I hope you're very well wherever in the world you are. Stay safe in the skies, and I will see you in my next one.